So we're just, 2 weeks and some days out from the election. And at the end of the day, first of all, the United States has a far too long election cycle, 2 years. So pretty much people are constantly in campaign mode. You look at other places in Europe, people will just up and completely switch out their governments in a month or two. But this is America and we do things the way we do things, which makes this election cycle a lot more interesting because Kamala is the first person we've seen take on a campaign as quickly as she has. Now, obviously, it wasn't a normal cycle. It wasn't normal throughout the regular primary season. She was already vice president. Joe Biden stepped down, what have you. All of this is very unique and very different. But at the end of the day, look, campaigns are always about getting the vote out. Everything matters. Messaging matters. Narratives matter. It matters what your policy plans are, how much money you can put into advertisement, endorsements. But more importantly, at the end of the day, it's about the operation. Who do you have on staff? Who's managing the campaign? Who's the visionary behind the campaign? How are you reaching out to people, knocking on doors, making phone calls? And then, most importantly, once you connect with these people, how are you staying in contact with them? Because you need a balance. It can't just be, like you don't want to do too much, you don't want to do too little. And at the end of the day, though, it's about getting to the polls and voting early. And Donald Trump, as we know, has been struggling with the female vote, always has. And in this particular election, it really, really is going to be his kryptonite above everything else because the Dobbs decision, the reversal of Roe v. Wade, was one of the biggest political blunders in modern times. It just really was a massive mistake for Republicans because there's no effective way for Republicans to address or talk about abortion because at the end of the day, it was a Republican Supreme Court, the conservative justices who did that, the pro life movement, the extremists on that end. They should have kept it a carrot on a stick because now you got 20 states with these abortion laws. Many, many, many women are dying, bleeding to death in bathrooms and in lobbies and parking lots because they're being denied care from doctors due to the laws there. And you can't make people forget about this. It's not something that people are going to brush under the rug. So let's take a look at some of these early numbers from Michigan, and we'll check out these charts as well. The CEO of a data analyst company is sounding the alarm for Donald Trump about early voting numbers coming out of Michigan. Tom Bonnier took to Twitter on won't call it X, took to Twitter on Tuesday to show the raw numbers of early ballots. The data doesn't show who is winning or losing, but gives a clear early picture of the voters' demographics. Among his findings was the number of female voters has drastically increased when compared to elections in both 2020 and 2022. So both of them. Quote, a lot that is being driven, a lot of that is being driven by a huge turnout from Black women. Black voters overall are accounting for a substantially larger share of the votes thus far relative to the same point in 2020 and 2022. Many indicators suggest that Kamala Harris is seeing strong support among women voters, so their large turnout will be celebrated by Democrats. With the candidates polling so close, political experts agree that the final numbers will come down to which side can turn out most of their supporters. And that's really where Donald Trump, before we go over these numbers right here in these charts, that's really the biggest area where Trump is struggling because he hasn't genuinely expanded his base. And as the weeks have progressed, not only has he been losing his mind more and more generally, but he also is doubling, tripling down on just cartoonish racism, just racism and nothing more. It's really not more complicated than that. It's just the immigrants are coming. Oh my God, we got to kick all of them out. You know, standing around, swaying the music for 39 minutes instead of answering questions, just doing all types of just weird BS, pissing off more and more Republican voters who weren't a part of the MAGA cult. So when it comes to turnout, Donald Trump really is not in a good position. So first, hold on. I got two of these out. We're gonna look at some of these numbers. Let me pull this chart up here. This is an absentee ballot early voting, and it shows 2020, 2022, and 2024. So let me go ahead and get this up right quick. I got two charts to show y'all. Hold on, which one? All right, we're gonna look at this one first. I got two of these charts to show you. And as you can see here, hold on, give me a sec. Let me see if this blocks anything off. Okay, you got a little bit more access here when it's like that. All right, so this is the last update from October 15th, and it shows from Michigan 608,893 votes have been cast already early. And we go down here, and this is looking at women. Yeah, this chart's just looking at women. And it's looking at Asian Pacific Islander, Black, Hispanic, Latino, white, or other. So for 2020, it was 1,097,000. That was total, and then this is now up until now, which shows that it'll be higher than that in terms of early voting for the rest of this time. So now it's at 608,000. In 2022, it was here, and that was a midterm high, a very very high turnout for the midterms over. So there was no red wave. There was no red wave. Maybe a red trickle. You've heard that a million times, but the Dobbs decision really plays into that. And here, these numbers you can see with Black women, this is up at 12% compared to 8 and 9 last go round, and white women are up here, up in the 80s, obviously because of population. Now, let's see, we got one more chart to check out, but again, early voting has begun, and overall, and there's other numbers except not just from Michigan, but overall, you know, anybody would rather be in Kamala's position than Donald Trump's. Because not only is she up in polls, and honestly, at this point, the polls really aren't that big of a deal. Well, not that they're not a big deal. Polls tell you a lot, but the polls have been largely inaccurate for a decade. I mean, they just have. So you got to look at other things like money raised from which demographics, and you got to look at stuff like um, enthusiasm, and then most importantly, the ground game. How many offices are going on? How are open? How the door knocking, phone call operations, all of that type of stuff, voter registration, and then the numbers that we're looking at right now. So with this, you can see these are looking at male and female. So we got, hold on, let me look at the female. My bad. I was getting confused a little bit. All right, so thus far for now we got 340. This is for Michigan, 340,464 for women, and for men 268,174. So again, this is up until now, and we will continue to follow these numbers. But not only are there more women in the country, well, in the world, but not only are there more women, but women vote more. So it's when it comes to stuff like that, this definitely is not a good early sign for Donald Trump. Hey now, thank you so much for tuning in here at Politics and Paper. If you like what I do and you support my work, go ahead and subscribe. I greatly appreciate it and really helps to support what we do here.